You're listening to the Business Wealth Impact Podcast, your source for empowering information and cutting-edge ideas from the world's top minds. I'm your host, Jeanne Amlour, founder of seven-figure coaching company, Jeanne Amlour International. Join me on a journey to unleash your potential and create your highest success. Welcome to Business Wealth Impact. Hello and welcome to another episode of Business Wealth Impact. Today we have Mason Dorner as a wonderful guest. Mason has worked in digital marketing for over 15 years, during which time he's managed over 125 million in ad spend. He's now Chief Ads Officer and co-founder of Ascendit, a rapid growth sales and marketing agency where he's consulted for, invested in, and helped to scale over 50 companies. More recently, Mason co-founded Medley Wine Company, a direct-to-consumer e-commerce organic wine company, which reached a multi-million-dollar run rate within just 30 days of launching. Welcome, Mason.
Thank you. It's great to be on. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely great to have you on. Now, I happen to know Mason a little bit, and Mason has a very interesting story to tell because while he was becoming extremely successful, he was dealing with great adversity. So, Mason, why don't you just tell people a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, like you said, I've worked on a bunch of different companies. I was also I was the CMO for a tech company in Orlando when they were started with them when they were very, very tiny. They were only doing about $1 million a year. When I left that company, they were doing over $100 million a year. We exited or recapped the company for over $1 billion. I also had started my own company on the side at the time. So lots of things going on. And I had something happen to me in the middle of all of that that really should have shut my life down completely. And instead, I was able to find a way and find a strategy to sort of take that and actually make it to where I could go faster and farther than if it had never happened at all. And so what happened to me is I got diagnosed with cancer right in the middle of building that company up. I had just been promoted. We were having one of the best years we'd ever had, taking on more responsibility within the company, and found this lump on my body when I was on vacation with my wife. Like literally just got out of bed one day and found this lump, and oh my gosh, it turned out to be cancer. And then about a week later, I was also diagnosed with a separate blinding eye condition. I woke up one day and I had double vision in both my eyes. I was having trouble walking around the room. I couldn't really drive. And so both these things happened within about 10 days of each other and should have just completely stopped my life. Most people probably would have quit work the next day. And so that's kind of the hand that I was dealt that I had to overcome and figure out during that period of my life.
Right. Now, what astounded me about you was most people do say, oh my goodness, I'm going to take care of myself. That is not what you did. What did you do?
Yeah, I mean, I would argue that I did take care of myself, but in a different way. So I looked at it, and really where I realized this is I had to go through two surgeries. I had to go through the cancer surgery to get the tumor taken out. And then as soon as I was healthy enough from that to go under the knife again, I had to get surgery on my eyes, which was an experimental surgery, just been FDA approved. And it didn't even really correct the condition. It just stopped it from progressing. My eyes were basically at some point going to explode inside my head. Like the collagen was just getting weaker and weaker. My eyes were losing their shape. And so I had to do this experimental surgery to just lock it in where it is. So I still have double vision today. I still see like 1.5 of you on the screen. I had to relearn how to drive and read and all this stuff. And so when I was going through the cancer surgery, the first surgery, I was in the waiting room or in the pre-op room and just freaking out, really losing my mind there in that room. And I was like, I can't do this for another couple hours because you show up way before the surgery. And so I grabbed my phone, asked my wife to hand it to me, and I jumped on Slack and just started talking to my team at work. Just, hey, how many leads are we at? How many SQLs are at? Are we getting the deal volume that we were expecting today? It was like the last day of the month. So we were trying to hit a new goal, a new quota. And so I just started working. And that calmed me right down, and it prevented me from getting uptight and freaking out leading up to the surgery. And then after the surgery, as soon as I came to, same thing, got back on my phone, hit my team up, hey, did we hit our goal? What do you guys need from me? And even after I got home that day, I just went right into just production mode. And what I realized is that allowed me to keep my mind focused on something that was healthy and productive instead of spinning my wheels about something that was really scary and really demoralizing that I ultimately couldn't really do anything about or was already doing all the things that I could do about it. And that was a light bulb because you don't just have the surgery and go home. It's a longer road than that. I had a bunch of complications. It was about a year or two before I got back to being fully healthy and fully myself. And I had another surgery to go through that hopefully I was going to come out of it and still be able to see. And so I said,
Mm,
okay, well, this worked really well today. I'm going to keep doing this. I have a lot of great
mm,
things going on in my life right now. I have my side projects, my companies. I have the company that I'm working for, and I don't want to let this go to waste. I don't want
mm,
to forego this once in a lifetime opportunity that most people never even get in terms of these projects that I was working on. And so I'm
mm,
decided I'm going to just pour myself into these things so that there's no brain space to think about the cancer, no brain space to think about the blindness outside of the doctor's office. Obviously, I'm not ignoring the problem. I ate very, very well. I studied,
mhm,
people that had been through this stuff before, and I attacked the problem hard. But when
mhm,
we weren't working on that particular problem, or I wasn't at the doctor, I was pouring myself into something that was productive
mhm. Right,
for the rest of my life.
right. So what you did is you used work properly. You used work as an
Hmm.
outlet to not concentrate, but not to say, "Oh, well, I'm just going to ignore I'm sick or I have these issues," but I'm going to use work in a proper way where it's an outlet and it's healthy. So this is very interesting for me because we don't normally hear that. People just stop everything
Hmm.
and because they feel like that's how to do it. But I think it does make people focus. Well, actually, I have a team member right now who has a heart condition and he's had it since childhood. I said, "Do you want to still working for us?" I mean, he said, "You know what? It helps me not focus on the heart all the time, which
Hmm.
stresses me out more." So we lightened his workload so it fits for him. So I do get what you're saying. Now you have a name for all this called weaponized adversity.
Hmm.
So you've created like a system. Can you explain how other people can use this if they have any kind of issue?
Hmm. Yeah, and it breaks down to a couple core pillars. So the first one I do want to pre-frame it of why this is important to have a strategy for adversity. And it's pretty simple. Everybody's going to go through bad stuff in their life at some point, even more so if you're an entrepreneur. And when you're an
Mm,
entrepreneur, you're going to have good stuff and bad stuff going on simultaneously, probably all the time. So there's that phrase of everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. Well, you should still have a plan for when you get punched in the face so that
mhm,
you're not figuring it
mm,
out, in the moment. You already know what you're going to do. And so that's
mhm,
why the average person should have this and develop this. And so the first step or the first pillar is you got to accept the problem and just start problem solving. The longer
mhm,
that you sit in denial or sadness, you're just burning time. You do need to work through the
mhm,
emotions in a healthy way, of course, but ultimately you don't want to sit and wallow in that. And taking action against it and taking control is going to make you feel better than sitting in it. Next thing is
mm,
to, view it as an opportunity, because there is opportunity in every bad thing that happens, every challenge that pops up, any unforeseen event that happens in our lives. And if you can flip it, this is already starting to flip the problem into something more positive. This is an opportunity for me to learn. This is an opportunity for me to overcome something. This is the opportunity for me to create a story that's going to help other people. And so we're already starting to flip, because at the end of this, you want to have the negative things flip in from headwinds into tailwinds, is how I summarize it.
mm,
You are taking the
mhm.
headwinds of life and flipping them into tailwinds so that you can go faster and farther than if the negative things had ever happened. So the next pillar is compartmentalization and controlling your controllables. And the way that I break this down is if you have something negative going on in your life or a bad thing that's happened to you, find somewhere else in your life that you can win bigger. Because if I
Mm,
have just this one thing and that's all I'm focusing on, and I'm just kind of losing on this field of play at that time, it's really discouraging. But if you can find
mm,
other areas where you can win big, you can win so big that your problems look small. In my case, I was able to find ways in business to win so big that even the cancer looked small, which sounds crazy, but it works. And so
mm,
even though I was dealing with this really terrible thing and the doctor's appointments were awful, outside of there, I was winning and I felt great.
mhm,
And that gave me the strength and the momentum to win inside the doctor's office and win at home when I was, on the special diets, and, win when I was taking all the supplements and doing, the
mm,
post-op therapy and all
mm,
that stuff, because it puts you in that winning mindset. You have momentum. It's like an
mm,
athlete. When an athlete starts losing, they just got to find a way to win, you know,
mm,
and once you get back to winning again, it becomes easier to do it. You don't want
mhm,
to identify as a loser. You don't want to get into that place where you don't feel like you can win and you don't feel like a winner. So you find other places where you can win, still have momentum, win bigger, feel like a winner, feel great about yourself, and have then that momentum carries into the rest of your life. And so that's what I did. Is I
mm,
said, I'm losing when it comes to my health right now. I have this amazing opportunity in business. I'm going to go super hard there, double down on the tech company I'm working for. I'm going to also, really start taking my own company seriously, launch that to a new level. And that's
mhm,
going to make all, this kind of hopefully temporary medical problems that I had look smaller.
mhm. Okay, so there's a lot going on there. There's
Hmm.
contrast bias at play.
Mhm.
There's also extreme gratitude.
Mhm.
And there's also funneling all your attention into what is working to take
Mhm.
away from the what's not working. So there's quite a few things that you were talking about. And I thought, okay, there's contrast bias there.
Mhm.
Well, let's face it. Once you've been through cancer, everything else seems easy, right?
Yep.
And the eye thing, I mean, that's a lot of adversity. Okay. So I really wanted to have you on the show because I really, well, first of all, I admire the way you approach this because
Thank
other
you.
people might not have done it. You're welcome. And I know you were freaking out like about all that. It's not like, oh, gee, I have this eye condition and cancer,
Mhm.
but I'm fine. We freak out. All of us
Oh,
would
yeah.
freak out, right? And you admitted that. So I love that vulnerability. But then you're like, okay, but how do I make the most of this? And one of the reasons I was so interested in this story is I find there is a general thing for people to complain about little things these days. We have
Mhm.
very champagne problems that people complain about. And I mean, you've been through absolute hell, right? You're positive,
Yep.
you're building companies, right? You maintain your relationships. And it sounds like, is your cancer in remission?
Yes, I actually just crossed 5 years about a month ago.
Wow. Well, congratulations. I'm very
Sorry,
happy for you.
it's still strange for me to say that, so I'm like getting a little bit choked up here.
Aw.
But yeah, that was a big milestone that crossed about a month ago. And even though it's been, it's been in remission for a long, long time. Like I was technically cleared very shortly after
Mm,
my surgery.
mhm.
You're looking over your shoulder. Anybody that's ever been to it knows you're
Mm.
looking over your shoulder till you hit that milestone. Any weird
Oh,
ache or
yeah.
pain or lump, you're like, oh my god, is it back? And you're running to go get a CT scan or a blood
Yeah.
test. And so to cross that milestone and not have to look over my shoulder anymore, I can't even explain the weight off my shoulders that it is.
Oh, wow. It must be such a relief.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, yeah, I always like to present a contrast bias on the show because I feel like when we have stories of real true grit and resilience and courage, because it's not like, you had vulnerability and, it's hard, right? You're not
Mm-hmm.
saying, oh, yeah, I just did this. You admitted you're freaking out. You found a way without complaining and moved on and are a huge success. You're a success before, but you didn't let this define your whole life.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's a really important message because I feel like people do have hardship, but it really is how you're framing it that really matters, right?
Yes.
Because when you said it even made cancer look small, who says that? Like no one. Like no one. So this is really inspiring for a lot of people. So there's a lot to unpack there.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say? I mean, there's also personality comes into this,
Sure.
right? And character. What would you say to anybody that might not have your particular character, right? When something, be it cancer or anything else, what's the first step to get into this kind of a mindset
Mm-hmm.
regarding disasters that happen? What's the first thing? Because there's always one step. What is
Mm-hmm.
that first thing that you would suggest if you could go back and say, okay, what was the first step towards reframing stuff and making it all a little better?
The first step, I think for most people that they should apply is the acceptance and the moving past it and controlling your controllables, taking action, getting through the okay, it happened, getting through the shell shock and getting to action as soon as possible. Because once you're taking action, you're now back in control. This isn't
Mm,
necessarily happening to you as much.
mm,
For me, the key shift was figuring out the compartmentalization, and I don't know if distraction is the right word, but diversion of my attention and
mm,
energy. That's where the flip was for me.
mm. Okay, so it's just putting it in a frame. Okay, this is what's happening. It's not, it's just happened. It just is, right? It
Mhm.
just happened, right? It's not personal. I'm not going to blame anybody. And then, okay, now what do I do that I can focus on that just takes my mind off it without, only watching Netflix?
Mhm.
Something that we can feel great about that we're constructing. Is that correct?
Correct.
Great. Okay, well, that's a first great step, right?
Mhm.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So now tell us a little bit about what happened with the wine company.
Yeah, and that is actually another story that kind of comes out of when something bad happened to us, actually, and where we kind of exercised this exact, formula. Again, it's so crazy that this happened to me, and it seems like a horrible thing. But in entrepreneurship, there's been so many opportunities to use it over the last 5 years. So with the wine company, my business partner and I, who own the marketing agencies together, we had a client who was an organic box wine company. And it was one of our
Mm,
greatest case studies ever. They were making $3,000 a month when they came to us. They've been floundering for about 6 months. They plugged in with us, and within 18 months, we're doing $500,000 a month in revenue.
mm,
Ton of that on subscription as well. Recurring revenue is super valuable for enterprise value in companies. And so we were really able to take these guys to the moon. And it was, again, kind of the greatest partnership that we had ever had, the greatest case study. We also negotiated to get a stake in the company. So we were
mm,
really in deep, and we were like, this is going to be our moonshot, because marketing agencies are not the best business models. They're a lot of work. You can't sell them for very much, but we figured we have
Mhm.
this skill set and it's going to give us opportunities to get into other more valuable opportunities or more valuable businesses. And so
Mhm.
this was the first time that really manifested. And then about a year and a half or 2 years in, we got kicked out, just out of nowhere, just rug pull. Just, hey,
Mm.
we're done. We're moving on. Not a whole
Mhm.
lot of explanation beyond that.
Mm.
And we were just heartbroken. I mean, we had flown to see the client like a couple weeks before. We sat around a
Mhm.
table and had dinner with them, and like, oh, we love you guys, and we're we're all going to take this trip to Italy when we reach this certain milestone. You guys are so great, and we were all really
Mm.
feeling good about each other. This was more than a regular client relationship. We did extra work. We invested in the company, and then we got kicked out, and it just broke our
Mhm.
hearts.
Mm.
And so we kind of sat back and said, okay, well, this is done for now. But at some point, we're going to keep an eye out to do this again because
Mm.
we've learned the business. We did everything except for make the wine, basically, in terms of like
Mhm.
helping to build the website, running the
Mm.
ads, doing the email and SMS marketing. The majority of the revenue generation activities are our company handled for them. And so we
Mhm.
saw an opportunity, and we're like, if we can ever figure out how to do this ourselves, how to get the product piece nailed down on our own,
Mhm.
like we're going to do this again because we see the
Mhm.
opportunity and what an opportunity there is in this business and in this marketplace.
Mhm.
And so we sort of started putting our own business plan together very loosely, just kind of over on the side of like, we're going to start putting a business plan together, putting a pitch deck together to do this ourselves.
Mhm.
And at some point, we don't know the exact when, but then we'll be ready when the
Mhm.
when comes around.
Mhm.
And about a year after the initial breakup, we got a
Mhm.
call from the minority co founder of that company, who
Mhm.
was the guy who made all the wine and
Mhm.
was the wine industry expert. The other co founder was
Mhm.
really
The
just kind of
marketer.
the money, no, just the money guy.
Mhm. Oh, the money. Mm.
Um, and so the co-founder who was the wine expert called us, and the same thing had
Mm.
happened to him. This happened to everybody at that company. Everybody kind of got
Okay. So
randomly kicked out. And so he called us and was like,
okay.
hey, will you write me a letter of recommendation? We were like, well, that's weird. What's going on, man? He's like, well,
Mhm.
we had this falling out. Well, are you going to do another company? And he's like, yeah, I actually am. It's not going to be boxed. It's going to be in this pouch this time. But
Mm.
yes, I'm going to do another company. And we were like, well, we're about to do a company. Do you want to partner up and get the band back
Yeah.
together? Because we were
Mhm.
always great with him, and he wasn't the
Yeah.
reason that we
Yeah.
got kicked out. It was the other founder that, for
Mhm.
whatever reason. And so the three of us reunited and now have launched something new and better than even what we had before, more
Mm.
innovative, better quality product, and that's taking off even faster than the last time.
Wow. So you got the actual expert, which would made your company way better because you're not wine experts, right? Well, that is
Mm,
wonderful news. It's funny how when you do the right thing, people come back, right?
yeah.
So that's awesome.
We never would have had that opportunity if we hadn't been kicked out. So we could have owned
Mm.
1% of the other company, or now we each own a third of, we have our
Right.
own that we're in control of now. And it never would have happened if we hadn't all been kicked out.
That is so interesting you say that because sometimes there's an infinite plan and the arc is
Hmm.
just a little longer than we think. Sometimes we're like, oh man, that's not good. Then you wait and you see, oh, the arc of the story is going further. And then it's like, oh, I get it now. It's even more beneficial. So
Yeah.
I love when that happens. So now I have this thing, even when I lose, I win. Because I'm
Mm,
like, okay, it looks like I'll lose, but I'm just going to wait a bit and see. And sure enough, most of the time it's like, oh, that actually was a win, because there's the timeline we have to look at. You
hmm.
just didn't know. Well, I'm thrilled for you.
Thank
That is
you.
amazing. And you're welcome. Now people can buy the wine at medley.com. What's it called?
Drinkmedley.com is the URL.
Drinkmedley.com if you want
Hmm.
to find some. And it's organic, right?
Yes, it's organic, sourced from Europe. So it's the cleanest wine in the
Oh,
world. Even organic wine in the US, a lot of times is still
mhm.
grown next to
Mm.
conventional grapes. So
Yes.
pesticides get in the water, they blow across in
Mhm.
the wind and stuff. In Europe, that stuff is none of it's allowed at all. So it's even European organic is even cleaner than US organic. It's also
Right.
low
Right.
sugar, low sulfites. So you don't have
Mhm.
that same kind of drag the next day that you have when you're drinking US wine.
Right, right, and just the average everyday crops are cleaner there anyway,
Hmm.
they wouldn't allow most of the stuff at all. Okay, well, that's amazing news. So what's your next move? What's the next big thing? Is just to grow the Medley wine and keep the other marketing company going?
Yeah, so Medley's definitely the focus that we think is going to change our lives when we either exit this company or go to a certain point. So I'd say that's the next thing. But beyond that, it's to do it again and again. We want to find more products where
Mm.
we can own the company and then plug in our marketing agency to be the marketing and sales engine for it. Specifically with this team of these 3 people, because our wine partner, he's an amazing operator, and wine is really difficult to produce and really difficult logistically to get here from Europe. So when you're starting to talk about other products that we've done work in, like protein bars and supplements and things like that, he could probably do that stuff in his sleep in terms of the product sourcing and manufacturing. So that's the long-term view, is really to probably build a collection of CPG companies that all kind of roll up together.
That's fascinating. Well, Mason, you've been great. I really applaud you on all your success
Thank
under
you.
like great weaponized adversity. Now, what's one thing you want to leave people with as far as like mindset or anything?
I think the biggest thing that I could leave people with is to challenge the beliefs that they grew up with, and challenge the ceilings that they grew up with. In my family, there's a lot of limiting beliefs and a lot of ceilings in the
Mm,
generations before me, parents, aunts, uncles, etc.
mm,
And had I not seen outside of that and broken those, my life would be very, very different. And so
mhm,
I would challenge people to really examine the belief systems that you were just kind of subconsciously raised with, identify those so that you can start evaluating if you need to break them or look beyond them.
mm. Okay, well, that's a fantastic note, and I completely agree. So, thank you for turning up today. Thank you, everybody, for listening, and we will see you on the next episode. Please share, please leave great reviews, and tell us how we're doing. You're listening to the Business Wealth Impact Podcast, your source for empowering information and cutting-edge ideas from the world's top minds. I'm your host, Jeanne Amlour, founder of seven-figure coaching company, Jeanne Amlour International. Join me on a journey to unleash your potential and create your highest success. Welcome to Business Wealth Impact.